And so on this call, we have students that have joined us, interns, alumni. We'll also have career seekers joining us as well. And so please use the chat throughout the call, and put into the chat any topics that you'd like Oliver to expand on, or any questions that you'd like addressed. I'll do my part at the end to bring back a Q&A, and we'll try to keep a live discussion going on the areas that you find of interest. Oliver will also share a private way that you can ask questions, to keep your confidentiality in mind. If you have a specific question around mental health or wellness that you'd like addressed in the call, so listen out for Ollie's instructions as he brings that up. But without further ado, I wanted to introduce Ollie to take it over from here and lead the conversation. As I said, really expert advice. Veretis has partnerships with some major institutions where Ollie directly provides mental health support. That includes the Sydney Roosters, the Sydney Swans, among many other big corporates. And so he'll have some really great advice to share with us all on this call. Thanks so much, Ollie, for joining us.
Brilliant. Thanks for the introduction, Adam. I'm very excited to be here, and as always, very excited to be talking to career trackers, career seekers, and the community that is part of that network as well. So thanks very much for having me. As Adam introduced myself, my name's Ollie. I'm a psychologist. I've been working with CareerTrackers for many years now, supporting mental health, performance, mental fitness as well. And today what we're going to be going through is looking after our mental health during COVID-19 coronavirus. It's a pretty interesting time. There's some unique challenges that we've been facing. It's really brought mental health to the forefront in many ways, which is great. We're having a lot of conversations which are really meaningful and will hopefully spark change, not just during this period, however long that lasts, but changes the way that we as a society look at the mental health challenges that we face and how we do those things along the way as well. So as Adam said, there is the chat function on the Google Hangout, so please ask any questions you want there. Otherwise, if you wanted to ask a question anonymously, so you didn't want other people to see who asked it, please feel free to text any comments or questions to the mobile number that is on the screen now. I will read the question out, but obviously I won't be reading out who it's from or the phone number it's from. So it's just, as Adam mentioned, a confidential or anonymous way of asking any questions you might have as well. And I do really encourage you to ask as many questions, make as many comments as you want throughout the course of this presentation, because yes, I'm going to be talking about what the textbook and what we've seen and all those sorts of things, but you are the experts of your lives. You are the experts of how this all interacts with your life at the moment, the changes you need to make, the uncertainties that you face. So please feel free to ask all the questions, make all the comments that you want, and we'll go down and dip and dive and dodge down all the different rabbit holes along the way and explore that as well. This is designed to be a conversation starter, and then we take it where we need to and where we want to along the way. So just quickly, I encourage you all to write that mobile number down now, just because it won't appear again. And even though you may not have a question at the moment, you might later, and you don't want to case the old, oh, damn, wish I had that mobile number. So quickly jot it down now. I'll give you another 10 seconds just to get it down, and then we'll get started. We'll get fired. We'll get underway.
I've got that in the chat, Ollie, so anyone can just refer back to the chat if you need that.
Perfect. We'll get underway. So what are we going to be talking about today? So we're going to start with having a look at why is COVID-19, why is it so real? And we're talking about that obviously in respect to our mental health as well. Why are we feeling such an impact as a society in regards to COVID-19 compared to the other major crises that we've faced as a community over the last 10 to 20 years, things like the global financial crisis and things like that, where you didn't see anywhere near as much impact mentally and emotionally then as we are right now. I'm going to show you some insights in regarding to what we've seen as the mental health impact of COVID-19. to confirm some of the things that you've been seeing, but also refute some of the things that you might have been hearing and being told to think a little bit about the impact that this has been having on us at the moment. And also to probably put into perspective where we sit now in regards to the mental health aspect and mental health impact of COVID-19. And as probably the way the whole story around coronavirus is going to start heading at the moment, the key takeaway, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, is we can't afford to get complacent now. Right now is the danger zone in regards to the mental health aspect. And we really need to be making sure that we're doing the right things and managing ourselves appropriately at the moment as well. Then we're going to be looking through positive steps to our resilience. So we're going to be looking at what we can do to be managing our behaviours and lifestyles to give us the best chance to move through this process, this situation as best as possible. Yes, it may not make the world rainbows and unicorns. It may not make this the happiest time of your life, obviously, but how can we build up the right resilience tool belt in ourselves to make sure that we're managing ourselves right and getting through this as best as possible. Then we're going to look about when things get a little bit rough. So what we're going to start doing now is look at the mindset as well. How can we manage our mindset through coronavirus to support ourselves? And then we're going to be touching on supporting others. So obviously a really major topic for many communities at the moment, for many families as well. As, you know, I might be going all right, but mum, dad, brother, sister, friend, whoever it might be, maybe they've lost a job, maybe they're struggling with something, maybe they're away from home, whatever it might be, how we can support others as well there. So that's a really individual journey when we start to get down to dot point 5 there. And I'm going to have a little bit of content there, but that's really where I'm going to be encouraging people to ask questions and comments, because you learn a lot about supporting others through talking about specific scenarios and things like that as well, because everyone's different, you know, and we'll go through this today as well. Everyone's different. Everyone's situation's different. Everyone will be experiencing coronavirus different. So that's a really good point there to be bringing in our own stories to talk around that as well. So brilliant. So why is COVID-19 so real? So, I mean, the main thing that we saw and the main conversation we're having in this space of mental health around coronavirus is just how tangible but invisible it is. You know, it's impacting the real world, our behaviours and lifestyle. So it's out there. It's directly impacted every single one of us. So when we look back on situations like the GFC, 2008, 2009, when that was really becoming a big issue, it impacted some of us, but if you were a student, it didn't really impact you as much. You could sort of dip, dive and dodge around it. There's been no escaping from coronavirus. It has really impacted every person. I mean, that's a bit of a broad statement, but the majority of people around the globe, whether you're young, old, middle-aged, whether you're working, whether you're studying, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're anything at all, it has impacted directly who you are, your family, and those around you. And it's been at such a scale where we all have probably got a story of a friend of a friend that tested positive, or a friend of a friend that knows someone, or we got tested, or we ran into someone that, then ran into someone that got tested, all those sorts of things. It wasn't detached from reality. It was causing a real change and a real level of uncertainty in all our lives. The second bit is the way it was impactfulness and the way it impacted us. It was multifaceted. So it impacted us from a health point of view, but it also then impacted us from a lifestyle point of view as well. So where, again, and I'll reference the GFC, but it was sort of the major event globally that I suppose was the last one that came around. Whereas that impacted maybe your lifestyle, it didn't impact your physical health. Where with coronavirus, there was a potential for it to impact your physical health, obviously being a virus, but also it impacted all our lifestyles as well. It changed with lockdown. It put our jobs into uncertainty. It made us change the way we were doing things, whether we were infected or not. And then obviously the other reason why coronavirus is so impactful at the moment is the uncertainty that it brings with us. Unprecedented event with no certainty of where the end is or what will be, and how we will come out of this as well. So much uncertainty. It is asking for us to adapt on the fly. It is asking for us to change at a rapid rate, which we've never had to do before. You know, we've never in modern society had a physical illness such as this, which has impacted and risen so quickly to that sort of, you know, epidemic state, or pandemic state, sorry, that the coronavirus is at. And we're not sure what it's going to look like. We're not sure what it's going to end. We know it's going to end, but what does that look like? It's a lot of uncertainty. And as we'll look at in a minute, that's really where a lot of the stress and distress sits, is that uncertainty. If we knew when we were going to finish, we knew at the extent of the damage it was going to do to the economy or to the lifestyle, or what changes were going to be forced to come out of it, we could prepare ourselves for it, but we can't. It's invisible, and it lurks in the darkness in regards to how this will all wash over us eventually, and how we will look back on this as well. So looking specifically more at the distress and why it caused by uncertainty, why it is so impactful. So the way uncertainty causes distress is the degree of impact that uncertainty has on our lives, the element of control we have over that uncertainty, and obviously the time or duration in which we need to sit in that uncertainty. So breaking that down and going through what I've just already explained as well, the degree of impact, as I mentioned, we've never seen something like coronavirus before. This has impacted everywhere, every part of our lives, and it's impacted it to a great extent as well. We have zero control over this as well. The control that we do have is minor and it's delayed. We can't get that instant gratification from doing well, seeing good results, you know. For example, when you're at school, you know, you did the maths equation, you got the right answer, you got the tick all straight away. Where at the moment with coronavirus, you know, we don't see for 2 weeks whether our efforts are causing a difference. We will never know whether we were ourselves personally in any danger, or whether the isolating behaviors we exhibit actually saved our lives or saved the lives of others. You'll never know. So the control is really low. And the time, I mean, the time is, that's where we're sitting at the moment. This is the trifecta of distress from the uncertainty. This is what's starting to develop now, because it's starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. The shininess and the novelty of working from home and preparing to lockdown and all those sorts of things are starting to get a little bit not as exciting anymore. It's starting to get a bit of a stretch. It's starting to get a bit monotonous. It's no longer a trendy thing. It's no longer, you know, something, you know, if you're ever having any issues, make sure you reach out to me, those sorts of things. This is where it's starting to get into a bit more of a rhythm, and this is where we're starting to see the time factor really start to become an issue as well. And it's a really interesting time with that, because we're seeing the curve flatten, and we're thinking things are starting to turn back to normal, but we've still got such a time frame of this ahead of us that this is really the next challenge that we face. So I suppose working through what we're seeing so far from a mental health perspective, you know, and, you know, I predicate by saying that here at Veretis, we work with a specific population of the community, which is the workforce. So we work with about 200,000 lives, across the country. So it is a captured population, but it is the population that represents most of the community, because it's the largest captured population that we have, the workforce, but also those that are most impacted by coronavirus, because it is impacting, like I said, on that health and lifestyle avenue, but then also on work and economy. Yeah. So what have we seen so far? I mean, point A there is this was not a mental health pandemic at the beginning. We did not see a huge uptake of mental health issues at the beginning of coronavirus. It was not drop, all of a sudden we've got all these issues at the moment. It was a slow build, yeah? Slow build, slow level of uncertainty that sort of progressed. What we saw, particularly in those initial, so I'm going to talk as if we're sort of in week 5 of lockdown, or week 5 of the lifestyle adjustment related to coronavirus. Some of you may have been working from home longer. Some of you may still be at work. Some of you may have been working from home less time than that. But I'm going to talk about the 4 to 5, because that's where most of us sit, 4 to 5 weeks. So in that initial 4 weeks, those accessing services, from our point of view, from the people that we work with, were the people that were already vulnerable. So the people that were already had a history of mental health issues or challenges, or those that made big life decisions 2 weeks or just prior to coronavirus becoming a big thing and causing us to go into our semi-lockdown and things like that as well. So what I mean by that is, you know, for example, people that ended a relationship 2 weeks before coronavirus stepped in, long-term relationship, broke up with their partner, planning on moving now. Now all of a sudden you've got to stay living together while you've been broken up, and the stress and change and uncertainty that can go with that as well. Those that were already vulnerable to levels of anxiety and stress, obviously, you know, were feeling it, and we presented as well. So what that saw is we didn't see a huge increase in cases, but we saw more complex and more severe cases, which of course is concerning in itself, but it wasn't a huge tidal wave of mental health issues. We also didn't see many people presenting due to health stress or health anxiety. The reason people presented, as I said, was related to financial and lifestyle related to stress. So people aren't overly anxious about the health impact as a whole. I'm making some broad comments here, I know. As a whole, it's not so much the health impact of coronavirus which is causing the distress, but the changes it is making to our lifestyle, which is causing the distress. So just a small different differentiator there as well. So this was all up until the beginning of last week. So the good thing that we had as a mental health provider here in Australia is that we had a crystal ball, which was our impact by coronavirus was delayed compared to most of the rest of the world. We were that 3 to 4 weeks behind. So we could look to places like Italy, like England, like America as well to an extent, and look at how their mental health services were engaged with. And it was at that 4 to 5 week mark that people started to access services. People started to get a bit more bogged down in their stress and distress, and that was when it really presented. And we saw the same thing here. So last Monday, bang on the 4th week mark, was when we saw a big surge in services and people requesting our support. So we are only now starting to get into what you'd call the mental health surge, or I don't want to use the pandemic because it's definitely not at that level of issue yet, but now we're starting to see people start to present with issues as well. And this is the real conundrum we find ourselves in a society, is as the impact of the virus physically is going down, we're getting this actual surge in mental health issues. So we can't afford to be complacent. This isn't going to be going back to normal. We're not going to go back out of lockdown. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to be a slow, gradual return to normality as well. And the decisions and mindsets we have now aren't just going to dissipate when our lifestyles go back to normal. There will be a lag. So looking after ourselves and presentations such like this, without beating up my own drum, are really important as well, because we can't afford to get complacent. What we're now starting to see, as I've already mentioned, you would have probably picked up from what I'm saying, boredom is becoming an issue, and complacency and frustration as well. So we can see the finish line physically in the impact of the coronavirus. We're starting to see isolation laws get relaxed a little bit. We're seeing South Australia, for example, I think it's on day 6 of no cases. We can see it. The impact, the immediate impact of it physically on our lifestyle is dissipating. So it's starting to become a little bit more like the GFC, a little bit more like that, but it's frustrating because we've still got to be making these changes, and we still can't be doing what we want to be doing, and there still can't be going back to work, and there's still economic consequences and things like that. So we can't afford to become complacent right now. All the great changes and adaptations to our routine, which were put in place, if you exercise more, all those sorts of things, we've got to be really tight on those things at the moment, because as we wrote about, Veretis, we wrote about last week, is we're actually in the danger zone now from a mental health perspective. And I'm not trying to put the fear of anything up anyone, but it's just being aware, and that's why this is great. So building our resilience, managing ourselves. So what we're going to start on today is we're going to be talking about how we can manage our routines, how we can manage our lifestyles to really give ourselves the best opportunity of being our best through this. So to give you some background around Veretis and our approach to mental health, we don't just look at the mental and emotional state or our mental or emotional functioning. We look at mental health and well-being as a combination of performance. How am I going in achieving and committing and engaging in those behaviors which are meaningful and purposeful to me? For some, that might be work. For some, that might be family. For some, that might be study. Combined with my thinking and emotional fitness or well-being as well. How am I functioning from a decision and an emotional point of view as well, and combining those two concepts together, because we know that our behavior, our thoughts and our emotions are all interconnected and feed each other. And we'll go through that in a bit later in this presentation as well. But we need to be making sure that we're, that's how we define mental health, and it's in line with how the World Health Organization views it as well. So I always present my first when I do any presentation like this. It's an old Cherokee Indian proverb, or story, legend, myth. Well, no, it's not legend or myth, but it's the story. And I always share it at the beginning because it's really pertinent to the way we manage our mental health, and really important in the way that we manage ourselves, particularly through situations like this. So I know you can read it, but just so I don't time anyone out and flip too quick, I'll read through it. An old Cherokee chief is teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy. "It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. Said the same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too." The grandson then asks his grandfather, "Who will win?" To which the old chief simply replies, "The one you feed." So in life, when we're managing our mental health, and especially during coronavirus and the situation we find ourselves in at the moment, what we've got to remember is life's not about the events we face and go through, but what we tell ourselves about those events and that we go through as well. And we've got to be making sure that we are engaging and reminding ourselves of the joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, and showing humility to ourselves and others in order to live a balanced life as well. So what we can do is it starts to give us the concept of control around our mental health. It's not what happens to us, but how we interact with what happens with us, which is so important. So putting ourselves on a solid foundation in regards to setting ourselves up for resilience. So it is important to build a level of acceptance to this situation. Be honest with yourself regarding your vulnerability at this time as well. So what I mean by building a level of acceptance to the situation is coronavirus is causing a lot of change and uncertainty. Accept this as the situation. We're not going to be able to live out all those meaningful pursuits or live the lifestyle that we want, and that's sort of it. It's the way the cookies crumbled at the moment. And if we can be real about what that means in regards to our pursuits, maybe we won't be climbing the corporate ladder as quick as we wanted to this year. Maybe we won't be able to talk to the professor at university as much as we wanted, or maybe we won't be able to graduate in the first semester this year. Maybe there are adjustments that we've got to make. If we can build a level of acceptance around that, it's no one's fault. That's not our fault. It doesn't show anything about my competence or my capabilities as a person. It's the situation. We can start to build a level of acceptance, and with that, we can start to flow and adjust. And we can start to look at what is and is not possible. The second part there is build honesty with yourself regarding vulnerability. How, in the situation that I see, what vulnerabilities do I have? Am I someone that pushes really hard? I want the best. I'm ultra competitive. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Is my vulnerability at the moment going to be stress and going to be having to slow down and being uncomfortable in that situation? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're honest with that vulnerability, you can address it and you can flow with it and be kind to yourself. If you keep trying to push through it and say, I'm not struggling, I don't have any weaknesses, I'm not vulnerable, then when you start to feel that stress, when the change and uncertainty in which we live with at the moment starts to hit home, then you're not going to be accepting of it. You're going to fight it. And if I tell you not to think about chocolate cake, the first thing you start thinking about is chocolate cake. If you start trying to sell yourself, I'm fine, I'm not stressed, I'm not stressed, you're going to be thinking about all those things which are causing you stress and getting that relative deprivation about where you want to be and where life's letting you be at the moment. So setting ourselves up, once we've got that foundation, it's all about isolating and not disconnecting. So what we mean by that, and this is taking you through some basic things about running our lives as well. And you would have heard some of this from the government, but I'm hoping just to dig a little bit down and give you a bit more practical awareness around this as well. So making sure that we are socially isolating, but we're not socially disconnecting as well. So we may not be able to go over to mum and dad's, go over to nan and pops, go over to the cousins, go over to the brothers, go over to the sisters, go over to our friend's place. But what we can do is we can still connect with those individuals. And there's an opportunity here to connect in a different way that we may not have ever thought of before. You know, back in the day, grandma, grandpa maybe wrote letters to each other. I mean, when was the last time we ever wrote a letter to them? How would they feel about receiving a letter from us and those sorts of things? So it's about being creative to look at how you can connect with those people that you used to connect with, or you do connect through on a daily basis, in a new and meaningful way. And we've seen an upsurge in things like Zoom meetings or Google Hangouts and other things like that. So making sure that you are prioritizing staying connected. The other thing that we need to be aware of here is, whereas we may have ran into our friends down at the shops accidentally, or we may have ran into people along the way, or just through the nature of what we do, you know, had the water cooler conversations at work. They're not just going to naturally happen to us at the moment. What we need to be doing is consciously scheduling and consciously making effort and time to connecting with people. It's not going to just flow as much as it used to. You know, we're not going to run into people. We're not going to have the conversations around the office. We've actually got to schedule and prioritize this as well. Don't wait to be connected with. Seek out how you can connect with others to keep in your network and keep part of the community in which you usually run on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis when your lifestyle is not affected by coronavirus as well. Structuring your day and routine. What we're talking about here is, you would have heard from the government, it's all about setting up a new routine, Brilliant. Absolutely. Diving down a little bit deeper than that as well. As I mentioned before, our behaviors, thoughts, and emotions are all interconnected. Yeah, they operate in a bit of a triad. When you do things which are meaningful, purpose, or value, and you perceive as being positive, you think positive, happy, confident things about yourself, and you feel the related emotions. And then when you feel confident, when you feel energetic, you're more likely to go for a run, you're more likely to ring people, all those sorts of things. So when you're thinking about your daily routine, when you're thinking about your weekly routine, our advice has been, make sure that you kick the day off early, in line with where you usually did. So if you usually get up at 6:30 or 7 or 6 or whatever time you get up, maintain that wake up time and schedule something positive, proactive, achievement orientated at the beginning of the day. Because if you can start cycling through your behavior, thought, and emotion triad in a positive manner at the beginning of the day, you're more likely to get engaged with and keep moving positively for the rest of the day. If you put things off, if you say, oh, I'll just start with a movie and then I'll go listen to my lecture at 2 p.m. or whatnot, you put things off, you're setting yourself up for a bit of a wobbly one. You're leaving yourself a little bit vulnerable to put things off. Then it gets to 8 p.m. You haven't done any of the work you said you'd do, and then you're probably not going to be feeling that crash hot about yourself. So my advice and what we're doing is structure your routine to do things early in the day. Prioritize getting your day off to a constructive, achievement-based start. In what we've seen already, I mean, our most busy day at the moment is Monday, which is after the weekend when the routine of work or uni isn't there. So we're already starting to see the impact about how the week, generally people are going pretty good. And then on the weekend when things are a bit loose, people don't have, they can't go out for their run or their weekend sport like they usually do. That's where people are starting to get impacted. So the way you can also support others is if you've got a team meeting at work or if you've got a group assignment at uni, schedule the connection, schedule a hangout, schedule the meeting for the first thing in the day. I'm not talking about 6 a.m. when everyone's still asleep, but bang on 9 a.m. or bright and early in the day, get everyone started in your community, get everyone moving forward, because not only will you obviously get your meeting done, but you'll start people moving off on the right foot. You'll start people getting their day done. So that's structuring your day and routine. Adjusting your expectations and short-term goals is more about being real and being accepting of the situation. So I just noticed I've probably lagged behind a little bit in the slides here, so I'm going to just quickly run through these before I go into adjusting for your short-term expectation. Technology is a major asset, as I mentioned. Connect with family and friends using technology. We always feel good when we teach someone or provide someone something new. Yeah, when we give back to our community. So if you know someone, one of your friends, maybe someone else on your street, maybe your grandma, maybe your granddad, who are a bit vulnerable to being disconnected at the moment because they don't know how to use technology, there's a great opportunity to teach someone else something there. Teach them how to use technology so they don't become isolated. You'll feel good about yourself providing back to someone, and you've given them the opportunity to stay connected as well. Been through these as well. What we really wanted to get to is adjusting expectation and short-term goal. So changes are going to be forced upon us. What we need to be doing here is remembering what is and is out of our control. And we need to be setting ourselves up and refute what we call light switch thinking, which is, on, off, 100 or 0, one option or the other, no gray area in between. We want to be making sure that, the changes that we're going to be making in our lives, or we have to force to make in our lives, doesn't mean that we necessarily turn off, but how we can look to be adjustable and adjust things. So maybe, we've got to look creatively and look flexibly, and maybe not be looking for a 10 out of 10 solution, but what does 7 out of 10 look like at the moment? I was planning on running the City to Surf later this year. That might not be possible, but rather than just giving up or stopping my running, what's another goal I can walk towards? Well, maybe I'll time myself running 14 kilometers or 12 kilometers on the same day. It's not the same buzz. It's not the same situation, but you know what? I'm still staying active. I'm still training myself, and I'll be in better position to run the City to Surf next year when it comes around and normality returns. Now, it's about thinking, adjusting like that, and accepting the fact that we might need to come out with some 7 out of 10 solutions, 6 out of 10 solutions, not the 10 out of 10 solutions that we have at the moment. The big thing as well about adjusting our expectations and short-term goals at the moment is link current efforts and key actions to longer-term outlooks as well. So if we have to adjust our uni schedules, if we have to adjust what is and is not possible at work, if we have to adjust some of our physical exercise goals, make sure that, we're still using them as a building block to where we want it to be at the end of this year, or wherever that longer term goal might have been. So we're shifting our focus from the longer term goals to the shorter term goals. How can I improve? How can I use this opportunity with less pressure at work to build those skills that I might have been missing at the moment? At uni, if I've got less coursework on at the moment, how can I endeavor to learn the coursework more effectively? Or those sorts of things as well. What additional study can I do while my uni workload is down? Things like that as well. So with adjustment, we want to be looking at the short-term goals and keeping whatever adjustments we do linked to those longer-term outcomes, longer-term goals, because they ultimately are why we're doing those things in the first place. And that's how we keep us with a sense of moving forward and connection to greater purpose as well. So when we're talking about what is and is not in our control, so part of setting up a good routine, part of adjusting our goals is understanding in these situations what is and is not in our control, or what we call what is in our internal versus external locus of control, locus being the point of control. So is it internal within us? Can I control this situation? Or is it external? So when we're forced to make changes, whether that be working from home, uni coursework, as I said, the physical goals, anything it might be, when we're looking to make the adjustments and what we need to do, before we even get to starting to plan, we've got to look at, all right, what aspects of this situation are in my control, what I control, versus what is out of our control. Because this will help you identify where you need to be focusing your efforts and where you need to be focusing your thoughts. Because if you can start to focus on what is out of your control, you disempower yourself. And this is where things like anxiousness and stress can start to come into play, because you get stuck and you can't see yourself moving forward. When you're focusing on what you can control, you're in the power, you're impacting things, you're taking control of your situation. And that's where we feel strong, and that's where we feel capable. Doesn't mention the key to resilience is focusing on what you can control. So I've got two different examples here. I've got examples on the left, which is about focusing on things which are external to our control versus internal, so external locus and internal locus. And then I've got an example, which I've already sort of been through, which is of light switch thinking versus scaled or solution thinking. So if we go through the one on the left as well, so an example of focusing on what is external locus of control versus internal locus of control. So the issue, like the trigger or the passion or pursuit of routine, which is being caused to change, is going to work or uni to complete our task. So being forced to do things from home. Identifying the things which are out of our control is, why was this decision made? Who made this decision? When will I be allowed to go back? What happens if I'm not able to go back by Christmas? I've just used a few examples I've thrown together there as well. If we are focusing on all those aspects, we start to go to the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. We're focusing on those things which are out of our control, and really we can't impact them. And if you spend 4 days thinking about those things, where will you end up? Versus where will you end up if you spend 4 days thinking about what is in your control, the internal locus of control. So where can I work from instead? What do I need to do to sort out setting this up? What expectations should I put on myself, hours to work? And what potential pitfalls do I need to manage? E.g., working in front of the TV is going to slow me down, or, all those other things that you might need to consider in there. If you focus on what is internal control, you can spend your time and effort preparing yourself and adjusting on the control so you can set yourself up. Where if you focus on the external control, you're not going to come to a place that gives you empowerment or sort of solves anything for you. You're going to be asking those big what-if questions, and answering any of those questions that are in that external list isn't going to produce any positive outcome for yourself. You're just going to obtain some information, but nothing you can really do with it. Why was the decision made? Well, it was made for this reason. It is what it is. It's not going to help you re-engage with that passion or purpose or routine in that adjusted manner in an impactful way. On the right here, we've got the example of what happens if we light switch think. So the passion or pursuit routine. So I used that example before, running city to surf. Light switch thinking is literally like, well, I can't do it, sad face, it's all over. Yeah. Where what we can do with scaled or solution-based thinking is looking at, okay, taking ourselves through a bit of a journey to understand, well, why did I want to do it in the first place? Are there other ways to achieve that? E.g., well, I wanted to do it to get fit. Well, I can still get fit. I can't run the city to surf. I can't have the celebration, but I can still get fit. What else can I do? What other events are later than city to surf in the year? So maybe I just need to adjust my expectation. Maybe rather than city to surf, I'm doing the Blackmore's Running Festival or another fun run later in the year. And as I went through already before, if running the city to surf is 10 out of 10, that's really what I wanted to do. What is a 6 out of 10? What is a 7 out of 10 solution for me? Well, running it by myself is still pretty good. I'd still feel pretty proud of getting through that as well. So what you can see is if you start to sit in that place of looking for the adjustment, looking at what sits between doing it and not doing it, you can start to creatively come up with potential solutions as well. So I wanted to go through those two examples to give you a bit of an idea there of what we're talking about as well. So setting yourself up in your decision making, much like in your behaviors and your routine, is really important with getting yourself through this and the adjustments that we need to make. So key points so far. Prevention is better than a cure. Proactively set up a good routine which prioritizes getting the day off to a good start. Engage in something early, front end your day. Prioritize scheduled time to connect with others. Remember, a 6 out of 10 Zoom call with a family is better than no time at all. It may not be the same as giving mum, dad, your cousin, your brother, your sister, your friends, whoever it is, a hug, but it's better than nothing at all. We've got to be adjusting and look at, well, if the next 4 months I can achieve a 6 out of 10, that's better than a 0 out of 10. And work productively up from what life would be like without being able to engage them, comparing that to 6 out of 10, rather than the deficit of, well, usually I do this and now I can only do that, and looking at the deficit. Set yourself up to look at the positive that still remains. Yep. Look for that 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, flexible, adaptable thinking. Remember the triad and commit to positive behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. Yep. So looking at how you're going through that. What are you doing to be positive rather than waiting for positive emotion as well? So now we're going to look specifically more at building our resilience through our mindset. Yeah. So explaining more around the triad and things of that nature as well. So here is a bit of a graph which has been doing the rounds about our mindset, your mindset towards coronavirus. Yeah. And how are you approaching this situation? Are you approaching it from the victim, the fear zone, or are you looking at the ownership zone, that growth zone? And you can sort of use this graph to get a bit of an understanding about where you might sit. So have a read through some of those examples and see if any of those sort of sentences, mindsets, actions ring true with you. Where would you place yourself? Understanding that you probably floated at points through all three of these different zones. So obviously what we want to be doing is trying to spend as much time as possible in the growth zone during this as well. So being kind with ourselves, looking to the present and future. How can I still edge my way towards my goals? It may not be the way I wanted to. It may not be moving as quick, but what can I still do? Thinking of others and how you can help them, those positive growth aspects, and looking at how I can use the new challenges to grow different skills and things like that versus the fear zone. We want to be trying to spend as much time in the growth zone as well. So what we need to be doing to do that is reflecting on our mindset. And this is all about the mindset of ourselves during this time. So this is the triad that I've been referencing most of the way through this conversation. So as a human being, at any one time, you're doing one of these three things. You are thinking, you are feeling, or you are behaving. And they interrelate to each other. When we think positive things, we feel positive things. When we behave positively, when we, give our partner a hug and a kiss, when we achieve, when we hand in that assignment, when we get that task done at work, we feel good, think good, confidence grows, and we're more likely to back ourselves and engage in those behaviors similar ongoing. So the example I want to use to sort of bring this home as well, and also have a look at how this rotates differently for different people, is imagine you're walking through the park, you're on your morning stroll, keeping obviously socially isolated and all those things, and you come across Rover here. Yeah. We can have, now we're going to start with thoughts here. So you've come across Rover, you see Rover coming over the hill, and one of three typical thoughts could come to our mind. I'm using this example. So the red examples are one person, the blue examples are another, and the green is another, and is a third person. I want to just show you how our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors can interact and dictate the way we perceive our things and how we behave. So first person walking along sees a dog and thinks threat. They think danger. They think attack. They think, oh my goodness, this thing's going to come and eat me. The emotion that is sparked off that thought would be something similar to fear. Their resulting behavior would be to run as fast as they can in the opposite direction. Some person may see the same dog and think to themselves, oh my goodness, opportunity for cuddles, kisses, positively, how cute's this dog, how brilliant. The emotion that comes out of that is excitement, and the behavior that goes off that is cuddles. Yep, they sit down, get cuddles, get licks, and all those positive things. Third person may not have any interaction, whatever. They may not care for dogs, whatever. They might just think, whatever, it's a dog. The emotion would be one of disinterest. The emotion is probably dictated by something else that's going on rather than the dog, and there'd be no change in their behavior as well. So I wanted to go through this example for you to sort of demonstrate a little bit in a bit of a metaphoric manner about how these interact with ourselves. It was really important that we are reflecting on what am I thinking about my situation, how am I behaving in my situation, and what thoughts and emotions is that producing for myself. Because if we went through that in that example, concentrating on the person in red here, threat, fear, run, the thoughts they're probably telling themselves after they run is, oh my goodness, thank goodness I ran away. That thing was so scary. Confirming that dog's a threat. Lucky I ran away. And they're just condoning that emotion again and again and again when we go through it. So understanding that our thoughts, behaviors, and emotions are all interrelated, we really need to be careful about what we're doing with our thoughts and our mindset during this situation. And we need to be identifying whether or not we're having we're engaging in what we call ruminating thoughts, excessive, intrusive, negative thoughts, or whether we're prioritizing problem-solving thoughts, thoughts focusing on what is controllable, the internal locus of control, and action planning around that as well. So ruminating thoughts, the way you can pick up that maybe you're starting to cycle through life a little bit negatively driven through your thoughts is when you start to becoming obsessive over things. So maybe you're checking the Corona app every 30 seconds to see if you bumped into someone that's tested positive. Maybe you're engaging in the media every 5 minutes, overindulging, every bang, 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 bang. Maybe you're always asking yourselves those what ifs. What if this happens? What if I lose my job? What if that person loses their job? What if we don't get through this? What if in 6 months' time I still can't see my family? All those things, you start focusing on those external locus of control, those ruminating thoughts, intrusive negative thoughts. That can be an indicator that we might need to be taking control of the situation a little bit more and looking at adapting our thoughts to being sort of problem solving and solution focused. And maybe looking at what triggers are producing those thoughts for ourselves. So what behaviors are we engaging in which are producing those thoughts? So for example, I get up, I watch the news, and I start each day feeling anxious. Well, really what might be happening for yourself there is you're watching the news, which we know is designed in a certain way to, focus on the negatives and produce that sort of thing. Well, obviously what's that doing is it's bringing your thoughts to what's going wrong, how the virus is out of control, or the negative things that the virus is causing, which is starting you off on an anxious day, on an anxious way. So if we change that behavior at the beginning of the day and go for a walk rather than watching the news, we can start to cycle through positively and set ourselves up for a positive day rather than automatically engaging in the negative or anxious thoughts as well. So we can avoid our triggers, change our behaviors to give ourselves a break from ruminating or obsessive thoughts. Try things like meditation as well. If we're distracting it, if we're disengaging from the racing thoughts, from the thoughts that are pursuing ourselves all the time and taking time just to be present with ourselves, we can start to onboard the behaviors that we want. So meditate and then act in accordance with my values, my achievement. What do I want to achieve today to move forward? And keep having a good idea of what is a value-orientated, achievement-orientated behavior for myself. So studying, I feel good when I study, or connecting with others at work, whether it's having a phone call with mum and dad, those things which give us good meaning and purpose. If we have a clear understanding of what those things are, what we can do is make sure we're engaging in them as often as possible to be leaving and avoiding ruminating thought and excessive, intrusive, negative thoughts. So I've already mentioned this as well, but obviously coping with media. So going through the triad as well, obviously, engaging in media, we need to stay informed, but we're not medical professionals. We're not government, we're not the Prime Minister here. For us, this isn't changing every 5 minutes. We need to stay informed, but not overindulge, because we know that media is a trigger for our thoughts. We know that media focuses on the negative things, and if we overindulge, it can start to make us focus on the negative emotions too much, and it can help us focus too much and impact our behavior. So, So remind ourselves of the role media plays. Sorry, I've forgotten to update the text in this one, but we've got to remind ourselves the role media plays to inform, but also to sell. And we've got to remind ourselves and ask ourselves, am I staying informed or am I obsessing? Yeah. So by having and making sure that we're being distinct about that as well. Then we've got to help problem solve ourselves through how we can limit our exposure. Yep. So what we're suggesting to people at the moment is that we watch the media briefly in the morning and we watch it briefly in the afternoon, or scroll through it on your phone, however you engage with media, so that you're keeping a good routine around the media as well and not going back into it every single day. So having a good set routine for yourself can be a really handy way in making sure that you, limit and be smart about how much media you're digesting as well through it all. The other thing as well, when we're talking about the triad, one way that we can help be positive in this moment as well is understanding and reflecting on what is the message I'm passing on to others? How am I presenting to the world? Am I passing on ruminating thoughts to others? Or am I spreading anxiety and stress as well? Because if I start doing that, if every conversation I start with is like, oh, how are you traveling? This is such a disaster. This is such a change. This is all those sorts of things. Then you're automatically kicking off all your relationships with others on that manner. So am I passing on ruminating thoughts, or am I bringing variety into my relationship? So I'm hearing variety back from others that I'm discussing things with. Making sure that you're checking in with your emotions and how they are impacting my communications and actions with others as well is really important. You need to be making sure that you're not just catastrophizing in front of other people and breeding catastrophe to them, because then they'll catastrophize back to yourself as well. And make sure that you're concentrating on the positives, not just the negatives. So I encourage everyone at the moment to be practicing gratefulness. So the way I encourage gratefulness to be practiced is 3 things I'm grateful for and why at the beginning of each day. And just like we go through the triad, if you're starting your day by thinking about 3 positive things and why those things are positive, you start the day feeling positive, you're more likely to get up motivated, thinking about the opportunities that lie ahead of you, rather than starting the day thinking about 3 negative things as well. It can be a little trip. It's not going to make the world rainbows and unicorns, but it can be a little trick to starting yourself off cycling through the triad in a positive manner, rather than being vulnerable to starting off in a negative manner as well. So just briefly, building our resilience, supporting others. So this is an important little picture that I want to show a lot of you, and as well as that when it's about supporting others, and I don't have a lot of information here and I'm wary of time, I want to leave some time for questions. It's not just about doing with and trying to take pain away or take the concern away from people, because there's certain things we can't do. We can't take the pain away from everyone. We can't give them their job back. We can't reduce the rent stress that they're doing. We can't, open up the universities or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's just being with, which is this little picture is representing at the moment as well. So it's not just about trying to take pain away, but sometimes just, even if someone's struggling, just reaching out and talking to them about anything can help them, remind them that there's people out there that care. You're not taking the pain away. You're just being with them. You're normalizing it. Maybe sharing some of your vulnerability, your concern as well. If you're hearing their story that, it's been a lot lately. I've changed this. I've had to change that. I can't go to work. I've been stood down, all those sorts of things. Reflecting back what you're hearing is really important, and then not solving the issue for them, but just sitting there with them in that moment can be a really impactful way to support someone through this as well. So supporting others, awareness of our interactions is really important as well. So going back to this slide as well, what message am I passing on? Am I catastrophizing? Am I spreading the out of control external locus messages, which is just breeding concern and anxiety amongst others? How am I interacting with others? If I'm anxious and stressed, am I presenting anxious and stressed to others and passing that emotion on? And in the conversations I'm having with people, am I focusing on positives, not just the negatives? So one practical step to supporting others is making sure that every time you're interacting with someone, have keyed up one positive message that you are going to get through that in that conversation as well. Because naturally at the moment, it's always going to come back to coronavirus, what's happening for you, where are you anxious, all those sorts of things, how big and bad this is. Have one positive message to send out each time you're talking with someone. And you can do that from, if you're practicing gratefulness in the morning, share with someone what you're grateful for. That's a really positive thing to bring into the conversations and spread and help people bring their thoughts to positivity, not just negativity. Encourage others to limit and be constructive in the way they digest media. The signs of someone struggling, really we're looking for a change from their usual level of emotionality. So not just overly emotional, but also, lack of emotion as well. If someone becomes hard to read, they seem a little bit detached, that can be a sign that someone's struggling. And as I mentioned before, supporting those you feel might be struggling, it's all about listening. Yeah. It's all about making sure that you're, opening up the conversation, and rather than just concentrating on doing with, the being with. So reflect meaning. So if someone's talking about how they lost their job and they're finding it really hard financially at the moment, open space, reflect back. Well, it sounds to me like, you're feeling a lot of pressure at the moment. Reflect back meaning it does two things. It helps the person feel heard. It normalizes that what they're feeling isn't crazy, that you get it. And it also helps you stay aligned with the messages that they're sending. Because if someone's if you get off topic or you misinterpret it, they'll gently bring you back to what they're talking about as well. And just connecting through that as well is really important. What you can then do off the back of that is see if they've ever faced these sorts of challenges, not specifically Corona, obviously, but financial issues or stress or anxiety. Have they spoken to someone before? What tips have they, or what have they used before to get through these moments? As well is a good way of empowering the person to take action, and also being in that being with, not just that doing with space as well. So as I mentioned, I know I'm just going on to time, but hopefully people can hang around a little bit. But please ask more questions regarding supporting others. It is a bit more of a personal journey, so I encourage specific examples. The other thing I encourage you to do is look, Veretis, as we are, is we're putting out a lot of different resources at the moment related to coronavirus. So if you enjoyed what we've spoken about today, and you're looking for some other things, some other ways that you might want to be looking forward, we've got lots of different articles and one pages and tip sheets on things about leading versus managing in this time, managing your way out of cognitive, out of emotional decline, practicing gratefulness in a crisis. So how do you look for positivity? How do you maintain your motivation, remaining rational during these times? How do you take personal action? And we put one out there about building a pillow fort as well, a bit of fun to fill in a bit of time as well. So you can find them on our LinkedIn if you search Veretis, or also on our website as well. You can find those links. There's about 20 or so different articles that you can find there at the moment, which is just some additional tips and tricks and resources that you can use during this time as well. And now, thank you very much for listening. We do encourage you, as I mentioned, we're producing a lot of different things, a lot of thought pieces around mental health, around performance during this time. So I encourage you all to, there's the socials. Jump on there, give us a follow, stay connected with what we're doing. You never know, you might find some handy hints along the way as well. And also, if you ever wanted to email me any questions, obviously we're going to open up to questions now, but if you wanted to ask me specifically some questions later as well, please make sure that you email me as well down there.